All right, welcome back to the channel. So Canelo Alvarez ducked Demetrius Andrade and a $40 million purse, according to Boo Boo Andrade. And Demetrius Canelo Alvarez's contract with Dazn is about to expire. So we don't really know whether or not that fight is going to be able to take place, man. But there's a lot of pressure and a lot of blame being shot at Demetrius Andrade that I think is just unfair. So let's talk about the potential Demetrius Andrade and Canelo Alvarez fight in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So we in this video are going to talk about Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do a series of videos about topics related to him. He just came off of a win against Billy Joe Saunders and one that I love the fight, man. Canelo Alvarez is a fighter. I love watching this guy in the ring, and I can understand why people would think that Canelo Alvarez is the best fighter, that he's the best fighter in the world, and that everybody else is clout chasing him, right? So that's an attitude that you wind up hearing a lot from the real hardcore Canelo Alvarez supporters. But I don't really think that that is really a good, accurate view of what's going on, because I think that we forget sometimes that the purpose of boxing, the sport of boxing, is really to see the fights. And we as boxing fans, for one reason or another, make a lot of excuses about why guys shouldn't be making fights. And this is a perfect example of it with Canelo Alvarez and Demetrius Andrade. So Canelo Alvarez, comes out of a fight against Billy Joe Saunders, beats up both Billy Joe Saunders real nasty. I mean, that uppercut to that eye, was it a right uppercut to the eye where he fractured his orbital bone? It was absolutely positively brutal. And, you could tell in that whole fight that, at least this was my viewpoint of the fight, because I didn't do a post fight on it because, I was taking a little bit of a break, letting some things sort themselves out. So, but I did make sure that I saw the fight, and my viewpoint on the fight was that, man, there's just nothing Billy Joe Saunders could do with him other than make it look like he won a couple rounds. And honestly, I don't see what in the world Dazn was talking about trying to give Billy Joe Saunders any of those rounds, because I thought he was just pretty much just running and really getting hit hard. And sometimes he would, flick out some light jab or a light straight right hand or something like that. But pretty much never really doing anything to Canelo. So, he just really kind of blew the guy out. But like I've said before, I'm a fan. I am a fan of UK boxing, but I understand that UK boxing is pretty much it's a domestic level skill fights. It's not the same as the fights that you get in the United States. And Canelo Alvarez beating Billy Joe Saunders, come on, man. I don't like to say what has Billy Joe Saunders done. I could easily say that a win over David Lemieux and a win over what was his other really good win, Chris Eubank. Okay, all right, good wins, but not, come on, man, not that big a deal, man, really not that big a deal. And you could see it coming, but you could also see in that fight that Billy Joe Saunders was causing him some problems with his movement. But regardless, it was a fight that it wasn't going to be a challenge for Canelo Alvarez. But after the fight, Demetrius Andrade, who's the WBO champion at 160 pounds, who was supposed to be fighting Billy Joe Saunders, but Billy Joe Saunders drug tested his way into a bigger payday. Like, if that isn't an indictment on the drug testing policies in boxing, I don't know what is. When a guy could fail a drug test at 160, just go move up fight basically a nobody to get the same belt at a weight class higher so he doesn't have to lose weight, and to get rewarded with the biggest payday of his career against Canelo Alvarez, when he should have been fighting Demetrius Andrade, and Billy Joe Saunders was the reason that fight didn't happen. So people blaming Demetrius Andrade for who he didn't fight, I can see blaming him for not fighting Jermell Charlo. That's on him. But not fighting Demetrius Andrade, or not fighting Canelo Alvarez, or not fighting Gennady Golovkin, that's on them. So, Demetrius Andrade comes out and says to Canelo, hey, you need to fight me when we're going to fight, da-da-da-da-da. Canelo Alvarez gets hot. It tells him, F word, get out of here. You just want a paycheck. You just want a paycheck. And my thoughts on the matter when I heard him say that was, yeah, man, he wants a paycheck. What's wrong? What is wrong with him wanting a paycheck? I don't see anything wrong with that man wanting a paycheck. Do you see something wrong with that man wanting to have a paycheck? Canelo Alvarez fought Billy Joe Saunders for a paycheck. So what's the issue, right? But, that's just the banter that goes back and forth between fighters. However, when it gets into conversations that fans have about it, people were saying about Demetrius Andrade that, Billy Joe Saunders has a better resume than you. Okay, so what? If you think Billy Joe Saunders has a better resume than Demetrius Andrade, then okay, so what? Canelo Alvarez beat Billy Joe Saunders. Who's he supposed to fight next, right? And what's wrong with Demetrius Andrade wanting to fight with him? See, that's why, getting back to my original point of the video, or the overall point of the video, is that we as boxing fans, or many people as boxing fans, I don't try not to do this, just, pretty much just come up with excuses for a fighter not taking a fight. That's just it. Because you can't tell me, if you're looking at the sport of boxing and you really are looking at the skill sets of these guys, that you think a guy like Rocky Fielding, or what's the other guy, Callum Smith, or Liam Smith, or Billy Joe Saunders, is that type of fighter? Is the same type of fighter Demetrius Andrade is? He's not. Demetrius Andrade, you can say, who is Demetrius Andrade not fought? That's a question. Like, when people say, well, who has he fought? Who has he fought? Well, the better question is, who has he not fought, right? Is there somebody out there that he has not fought? Because after you beat somebody, you beat them. You got to, unless you're going to retire, you got to move on and fight somebody else. And there's just no justification for, at the time that Canelo Alvarez was at 160 pounds, there was no justification for him not fighting Demetrius Andrade. And that was the case for both him and Jermall Charlo at 160 pounds. And I'm sorry, man, not everybody's going to have a short memory for that. And like I said, I'm a tremendous fan of, like, Muhammad Ali, the guy that's all on my wall. That man, that guy was like, shoot, man, like another father to me when I was a kid, listening to him and watching his old fights and all that type of stuff. And, the feeling it gave me and the love it gave me for that man. I understand that it was very tough for me to ever, like, really look at a fight that he had objectively. So I understand what it is with people who are Canelo Alvarez fans. If Canelo Alvarez is like your Ali, or what Ali was to me, the Canelo Alvarez is to you. But I don't think that should blind you to, or blind people to, the fact that as long as Canelo Alvarez is fighting as a professional fighter, Canelo Alvarez is going to have to fight top-notch competition. Now, what I am hoping, and I think is a good chance that this is the case, I think that it may be DAZN that is really preventing the partnership with DAZN and Golden Boy that was preventing Canelo Alvarez from having some of these fights. Because obviously, in the case with Demetrius Andrade, Demetrius Andrade says that he ducked $40 million to do it. I don't know if that's necessarily true, because I remember when Eddie Hearn said, right after Demetrius Andrade won the WBO belt, I believe, and Canelo Alvarez had all three of the other belts at the time, that DAZN was the one that didn't want that fight. So, I think, it's reasonable for boxing fans to get on, to voice what they want out of boxing, which is to see their fighters have the chance to prove that they're the best. And Demetrius Andrade has done what he needed to do to be able to prove that. So if, as a boxing fan, you're saying your guy is the best, your guy is number one pound for pound, all of that, then in your own mind, I think that you should say, well, since he is the top guy, there's nothing wrong with these other guys wanting to fight him. I mean, he's the top guy. What are they supposed to go do? Call out and want guys that aren't the top guy? You get what I mean? So anyway, that's my take on the whole Demetrius Andrade, Canelo Alvarez thing. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And hey, man, if you think I'm hating on Canelo, hey, that's on you, man. I personally think that Canelo Alvarez is an absolutely terrific fighter, one of the best fighters in the world right now, for sure, if not the best fighter in the world right now, and puts on tremendous performances. But that doesn't mean that he's invincible, and it doesn't mean that these other guys don't have something to offer more so than the level of fighters that he's been fighting lately. That's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think. And with that, I'm out. Peace.